Foreword. First and foremost, this book is a personal expression of a man's relationship with his spiritual master. A book about love, about wonder, about worship and surrender. A book about the path to God. It speaks of the absolute importance of the Master, the gracious Master who is the soul and very centre of all worthwhile spiritual endeavour, whose supreme quality is manifest love, the same quality which is the essence of his teachings. It conveys the living Master as the ideal, the highest and best in actual life, because he himself has actualized in his own person the highest ideals of all religions. The book bears witness to the fact that by emulating such an ideal, the disciple is given a practical path to follow, whereby he too may achieve the same results. Apart from a brief description of the inner spiritual path and a gist of the teachings which shaped so gloriously the last 10 years of the author's life, the book consists of letters written by Dr. Johnson to his fellow disciples and seekers in America. Julian Johnson was the first man from a Western background to travel to India, which in those days seemed so remote and alien, in order to meet and live with a master of the Beas line of perfect masters. In his own words, this book is a personal testimony to all those who may be seeking the light, a testimony for which his own personal experience provided the base. Written during the first 14 months he spent with the Master, living with him in continuous and close personal association, sometimes in Beas and sometimes travelling through northern India, Dr. Johnson's letters are anecdotal and replete with finely observed contextual detail. Now more than 60 years have passed since the letters were written, and the book stands as a historical record of the changes that have taken place since then in international attitudes and in Indian society itself. Most interesting, however, for the disciple or spiritual seeker, is the way in which the book throws light upon the apparent changes in the relationship of master and disciple within the context of the Beas tradition of the teachings of the saints. Every age is characterized by its own particular conditions, and saints and masters adapt their ways to the specific needs of their times. They come to the world to guide us to knowledge of our true self, and they speak in a language which is meaningful to us. Julian Johnson was already in the latter years of his life by the time he travelled to India. Throughout his rich and varied life, he had never wavered in his search for truth, his search for a practical path through which he himself could experience and know truth. As he explains in the introduction, Dr. Johnson was initially attracted to Sant Mat through a booklet which caught his eye at a friend's house in California. He read the words, "The Supreme Being is a boundless ocean of spirit or love, and the human being is a drop or current of spirit or love from this ocean. And love being the very essence and means of existence of the whole creation, it follows that no effort in any direction, temporal or spiritual, unless actuated by love or affectionate regard, can be crowned with success, and the work or labour rendered easy, sweet and harmonious." The words were in absolute congruence with an intense personal revelation he had just experienced, and they marked the beginning of a spiritual journey which led to his initiation by the great Master's representative in America and his subsequent journey to India. The book is his attempt to convey something of the extraordinary quality of life he experienced in the company of his Master. It is the expression of his joy at the fulfilment of those first words which had attracted him, an outpouring of a heart full of gratitude, wonder and awe. Today, Perched at the edge of the third millennium, many readers would be wary and sceptical of admitting even the possibility of a relationship existing of such unqualified love and submission. We find ourselves part of a worldwide material culture of scientific skepticism. Having systematically argued away our heroes and our gods, we can find no meaning or purpose in life and no basis on which to establish a common rule of conduct to ensure even functional harmony with our fellow living beings. We are trained from early childhood in the refinements of intellectual inquiry, and the age of information has exposed the relativity of all knowledge. The technology of communication is ubiquitous, and such factors have combined to create a fertile ground for pseudo-intellectuals to inveigle their way into the hearts of people, desperate for love and security. In recent years, so many false gurus have advertised and sold their recipes for happiness and permanent bliss across every continent, satisfying their greed for material and personal power by exploiting mankind's intense hunger for spiritual guidance and nourishment. When Dr. Johnson went to India, he travelled to a people who were mostly untouched by the great wave of technological progress which was about to sweep across the world. The people he encountered in the company of his master were largely unsophisticated and uncomplicated. Whether they were highly educated or illiterate made little difference to their attitude to the master and to their lives. Once they had heard their teachings, once they had understood and accepted them, they were able to put their faith and trust in the master without fear or reservation. This attitude is what Jesus was referring to when he said, "Except that you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." Today, the seeker of spiritual knowledge must be ever vigilant against exploitation by false gurus. And yet, if he is to walk on the path, he is also called upon to trust and love the master as a small child loves a parent. It would appear that the disciple is faced with an irreconcilable dilemma. But the true master of these times constantly encourages his disciples to see beyond appearances, to look even beyond the beautiful and gracious form of the master, which we perceive as the reality, but which, in truth, is itself a reflection of reality. He reminds us that everything we see is but reflections like the light which is cast upon a wall from a mirror, which has itself caught the reflection from the source. He urges his disciples to look beyond all form and concentrate their effort and attention on discovering within themselves that one and only reality, which is the source of all, the reason for all, the being of all, which is a sound current, the Shabad. It is the Shabad which is the real master, and when the disciple is initiated, he is awakened to this force within himself. Just as the great master stood before Julian Johnson as a living example for his time of the path to God, so the master today stands witness himself to the only way which is efficacious in the present conditions. Through Dr. Johnson's book, we share the sweetness and simplicity of the atmosphere around the master of his time, and we are given a glimpse of the teachings of the saints, in which the living master of the day alone holds a key to God-realization, for it is he who resolves all contradictions by standing witness to God's hidden ways. Faith Singh, Jaipur, May the 17th, 1993.